Hello and welcome to welcome to episode 306 of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason, once again joined by good friend Fred. How's it going, Fred?
It's going great. How are you, Jason?
Pretty good, pretty good. 2 more days of Mardi Gras, then I can leave the house again, so it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, are you right, like near where a lot of the happenings go on?
Well, our neighborhood, our little mini neighborhood, it's called Mid City, so we are literally in the middle of the city on some level. Um, it's not quite that bad, but there's just you really can't go anywhere this week if you're down here. There's so many tourists and parades. It's not worth it.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
just
We went down there. I think it was like a week or two after Mardi Gras, and there was still just like stuff all over the place. So I can't imagine what it's like during that time.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, and it's just like I said, it's just easier to just once you've done it once, you just kind of hang out, pretend like it's a giant blizzard or snowstorm, and you're stuck in your house for 4 or 5 days, and just roll with it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Well, did you, before we move on to our big topic, did you watch any of the NBA All Star festivities?
I did not. We were actually traveling, so I didn't catch it this year. I heard that the East won,
They did.
But I didn't catch any of the other stuff.
Yeah.
Yourself?
Tatum put up 55 points and won the MVP for Giannis's team in the East, and LeBron is now 5-1 for whatever that record matters. And then Mitch McLeod is everybody's new favorite player who won the dunk contest.
Yeah, I saw his name popping up on a bunch of stuff, and I was pretty. It seems like with the dunk contest, it's not totally unusual for like that to be the highlight of certain guys' careers. Where like guys will like win that, and then you'll never hear from them again.
Well, I mean, people are already trying to call this the one. Is it a top 3 dunk contest? And no offense to those people or Vince Carter, but like when you go back to the days when the finals were Michael Jordan versus Dominique Wilkins with Sean Kemp and other Hall of Famers dunking, you just can't beat that. Like
Correct.
McLeod,
Never
yeah.
even say.
McLeod broke Iverson's all-time scoring record of Virginia, and he's played like I think 10 games in the NBA total. And maybe this was a launching pad, and we'll see him in the NBA for a while. But like, you want if you can't have stars, this is what the NBA wants. He was like, he's a short-ish white kid with a 50-inch vertical leap. I mean, that's like a sponsor's dream, I would assume.
Incredible.
And he looks like just a pretty. I mean, it's always that thing where people say the reason people like Steph better than LeBron outside of personality is that Steph is more relatable. Even though Steph is an NBA athlete who's 6'4", which is my height, and I'm taller than the vast majority of people I see. He looks like Mitch McLeod looks like he could be your friend, or he's aspirational, I suppose. Like you can't aspire. You
That's
can't.
such a foreign concept to me. Like you are a big human being,
Yeah.
in my world. So to think that Steph, it just puts it in perspective. Because you see Steph on the screen, and and it's to your point, he just looks like normal size.
Yeah.
And to think that he's like your size is kind of frightening.
It is because it's like, but that's people always, and like I said, if you look at the pictures of Mitch McLeod, like I think he's got that underdog out of nowhere story, and he's got a 50-inch vertical leap, and if you're short and you can jump that high, it always helps you in the dunk contest. Short people dunking does look cooler than tall people dunking. It just does.
Yeah, the air that they get under their feet is it is incredible to see when somebody has that kind of vertical.
It really is. So I guess let's do not our NFL wrap because we got the draft coming up, but did you have any thoughts on wrapping up the NFL for the year? The biggest surprises, anything?
The thing that stood out to me was just how quick of a drop off there can be for teams from season to season.
Yeah.
And so now there's 14 teams in the playoffs each year, not 12. Now they've upped it to 7 on each side of things. But out of those 14 teams that made the playoffs last year, 7 of those teams ended up with a losing record this year.
Yeah.
which is just crazy. The Rams and the Cardinals, were really bad. But even like the Raiders and the Patriots and
Broncos,
the Packers, they were under 500, and the Titans were the number one seed in the NFC last year, and they ended up, or in the AFC last year, and they ended up under 500. It's just kind of crazy. Like now, you're really starting to see like some of that. They've shot for parity for so long, but like really kind of seeing that in full effect really was kind of shocking to me.
Yeah. Well, there's that team every year, and I'll bring up, your Patriots when they were the defensive team, and my Steelers when they started out 11-0, like where you play like 7 backup quarterbacks in your first 7 games, and 3 other bad teams that are beat up, and then all of a sudden you look like you have this great record, you make the playoffs, and next year you face a real schedule of real quarterbacks, and it's just, it just happens.
Yeah. I mean, that playoff schedule is always something that does have. In fact, we'll see that this year. Like, Jacksonville, for example, they've been playing like a non-playoff schedule for the past, 10 years?
That was like 10, decade.
Yeah. So, it'll be interesting to see if they are able to build something there. It seems like they would.
Yeah, they look.
That they have been.
Yeah, they seem on the rise. And Trevor Lawrence this year, I think he finally started to look like a guy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And it seems like, they got the right coach, and they have a lot of young talent on that team.
They really do.
Not too much. I think what was Ingram might be the only asset that they had this year that is up. He only signed a 1-year deal, I think. So they should be pretty much, coming back intact. So it'll be really interesting to see what they do this year.
Yeah. Well, as an AFC person, if you just think about your team, right? And I mean that pejoratively for anybody, but like you got a decade of Mahomes, you still got Josh Allen, you still have, Josh Herbert, Justin Herbert, who everybody says is the guy. You got Big Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson should be back. And if you add in Trevor Lawrence, like that's a lot of players to go through every year in the AFC.
Yeah, the AFC is just crazy good. At the top, you could pick 10 or 11 teams out of the entire AFC and make legitimate arguments that they're going to be a playoff team this coming year, but only 7 get in. So it is going to be really tough for the next few years. It'll be, there'll be some of the teams that will fall off because, I think of the Bengals as a team that could fall off. Burrow, I'm a huge fan of his. He's super talented, but, just with what they're going to have to do to try to keep that team together. Are you keeping Mixon? Are you keeping Higgins? If you lose those 2 guys because you can't sign them and keep your team and, pay everything else, I don't know.
Yeah.
Another surprise for me, I think, was just how bad the Broncos were. I know that was a topic the entire season, so it's not like coming out of nowhere. But just, going into the season last year with, there was a lot of, quote-unquote experts who had them as a Super Bowl favorite.
Yeah.
They ended up as the fifth worst team in the entire NFL. Like, that's just blew my mind as to how much that fell apart.
It really did. I actually picked them to come in last, and like the Raiders being bad was a bigger surprise for me in that same division. I don't know why I believed in Derek Carr, but I guess I did.
Yeah, but you weren't that far off because the Broncos were last. Raiders. Did you pick the Raiders over the Chargers?
I did.
Oh well, that was oh my god.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Herbert fan, so I actually expected them to do better than they did.
Yeah. So, and there's a surprise for you right there. They did not replace their coach. They replaced all the coaches around the coordinators, but they still didn't replace the head coach for a team that seems like one of the reasons they lose is incredibly bad luck with injuries over the years and then incompetence at the top.
Yeah, and again, going back to the Broncos, you could see how much that coaching piece, and we talked about Jacksonville too, right?
Yeah.
You can. Those are two examples where coaching certainly had a huge impact into the team's success or failure for the season. So I agree. It is surprising that Staley got to stay, but obviously there's something that they see in him, and this is going to be his make or break year, right? Because you add in this highly touted offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore, so the expectations have only increased.
Oh
for
yeah.
the Chargers.
Definitely. And I think, I guess everything else is I'm surprised by what I'm not surprised. Like everything just flips so quick in the NFL.
Yeah, and that's what makes it exciting, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's just if your team stunk last year, then you at least have some reason to be. It seems like the off season is the more enjoyable time, right? Because there's nothing but potential. If you're like a Bears fan, you're like, hey, listen, we got some pieces. We could do it this year. And then once you get to the season, it's that's when everything goes haywire and you get disappointed. But some of the individual things that really kind of surprised me this year, that when I was just digging into this a little bit. So I'm shocked in his last season that Brady led the league in pass attempts.
I know.
He had 733 pass attempts. Nobody was even over 700.
Now that we're on Brady, I know he filed his paperwork. We think this is it.
I do. I from hearing some of the interviews with him and stuff like that. I mean, I know, especially since he retired and unretired and then retired again, there's going to be even more speculation and talk all season long. There's going to be a team that's contending that quarterback gets hurt and they're like, oh, Brady's going to come in. I don't see it happening. I really don't.
I mean, he filed the paperwork quick, and I know J.J. Watt, who also retired this year, did not file his paperwork. So, and they both had nice seasons for older players. Obviously, no one's as old as Brady, but it does seem like Brady was like, he could have waited to file the paperwork, but he was like, no, let's get this out of the way. No hesitation. Let's go.
Yeah, I think I really do think that he's done. I mean, I heard the talk that he might, what if he gets an offer from San Francisco, his hometown team, and all that stuff, but I just don't see that happening.
No, but I mean, if I'm San Francisco, if I could have either Trey Lance or Brock Purdy or old Tom Brady, I would still take 1 year older Tom Brady.
Yeah, I mean, he could, you saw how successful they were with Purdy, you saw how successful they were with Garoppolo. You could only imagine that they have so many playmakers that, you can have a average pass, yardage of, 5 yards down the field and still throw for 4,000 yards because you're getting the ball in the hands of McCaffrey and Ayuk and Debo. And Kittle. Those guys are just going to do stuff with the ball.
Oh yeah.
A lot of teams don't have that kind of talent.
No, not even close.
So, I was also surprised that Tua ended up being the league leader in passer rating. That really kind of surprised me.
Yeah, because he was on fire in that beginning of the year. At least throwing the ball and Tyreek Hill running it for touchdowns. So. True,
but it's still just one of those things where
the
fact that he was that good and it still ended up being the season. I'm really hopeful for him that he makes a decision. I mean, I hate that he's even got to consider whether or not to keep playing, but I think everybody who's a football fan, regardless of what team you root for, is hopeful that whatever decision he makes is one that is okay with, for his future health and his family's peace of mind. Like, it's hard to imagine, especially the last couple ones that he got. They weren't really like crazy hard hits. It would just be really, really difficult to make that decision.
And for him, you're a national champion. You were a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. You made a chunk of money. I'm sure you've got insurance if you have to retire early. Like, it might be time. Don't come back if it's even a possibility. If it's your brain. Just very, very sad.
It's just scary.
Yeah.
Scary stuff. I was surprised Jamal Williams, running back for Detroit, led the league in rushing touchdowns.
By a lot.
And broke Barry Sanders' record along the way.
I know.
So, not something I would have seen at the beginning of the year. And, those are some of the things that were most surprising to me. Anything that stood out to you?
Not really. It's been more just thinking about like I said, as a Steeler fan, just thinking about what they have to do to become relevant again in the AFC, and it's terrifying. That's pretty much.
It is really terrible. And you know what scares me the most is the possibility, and I don't know how strong of a possibility it is, but it's a possibility. If Lamar went to Miami, then...
And Aaron Rodgers goes to Green Bay?
Yeah. The Patriots are not making the playoffs for years.
No, that would be rough, yeah. And as a Steeler fan, the only other really bummy thing, and I know this will be our Steeler Minute, even though you're not the Steeler fan, they brought back Matt Canada, who has been maligned as an offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh for 3 years. I've never heard everybody conclusively talk so much trash about the Steelers' offense. Like whether it's Tony Romo during a broadcast, whether it's people on the NFL Network, ProFootballFocus.com, everybody says it makes a high school offense look sophisticated, and you can't win games in the NFL. And they brought this guy back again. So...
Yeah, as a Patriots fan, I was thankful that they brought him back because there was so much talk about the Patriots offense that would typically get, derailed by, talk about the Steelers offense.
Yeah.
But, I definitely feel for you on that. I hope that they figure that out because, just that notion of what I was talking about, like the offseason being a season for promise and excitement and potential and everything like that, kind of looking at, okay, we're just bringing back the same crew.
Yeah.
And we know what we got before. It's kind of like the definition of insanity, right? Like,
it is.
Doing the same thing and expecting different results.
And the Steelers did it in the name of consistency and keeping a voice in Kenny Pickett's head that he recognizes. And it's like, I've never heard consistent talk, whether it's Stephen A. Smith or, like I said, Tony Romo on a broadcast said they had a pathetic, less than a high school offense. And we see it. Normally if you're the fan, when you watch enough Steeler football, you're like, I know what this play is. I know what this play is. Even if you don't know, like, if it's, red 44, black, blue, whatever. But you know exactly what's happening, where it's going. But then when everybody on TV is calling out the same way, you're like, that's really not good.
No.
That's real bad.
It definitely... It was surprising that they kept him. I was very surprised by that.
Yeah, it's sad. But on to happier things. The NBA.
NBA.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, looking... I think the last time I was able to join you was the very beginning of the season, and it was kind of crazy, right? Because the Utah Jazz had the best record in the NBA at the time, like,
they did
4 weeks into the season, and now they're not even in the playoff hunt.
No, they're not even in the play-in game. Yeah, and the Lakers still aren't either.
Yeah, the Lakers keep slipping. That's another situation where it's like, man, talk about just a dumpster fire. And I think it's good that they got rid of some of the things that have been causing them stress and frustration and stuff, but I just don't know if LeBron's at an age where he can carry that team the way he had, with the Cavs and in the past.
No. And they've got to jump the Pelicans, the Timberwolves, the Golden State Warriors, and Oklahoma City, who's been playing incredible this year. And they're still behind the Jazz and the Blazers. So there's a chance they even with the giving up one of their picks this year, they completely missed the play-in game, which is, then all the Michael Jordan people will be like, well, Michael Jordan never would have played in the play-in game.
Yeah, OKC, you mentioned them. They're a really interesting team. Talk about a lot of young talent. Like, they and they don't even have
Chet Holmgren, their first round pick. Yeah.
Yeah, so next year they're gonna be bringing him back and whatever first round pick that they have. they are a team that has just a lot of young talent. It'll be interesting to see if they can hold that team together for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Because if they could, even just for like 2 or 3 years, they could kind of be the next version of the Grizzlies, right?
Yeah.
A lot of young talent that suddenly becomes, finds themselves towards the top of the West standings consistently.
Yeah. Well, talking about NBA futures, the best record in basketball this year, but Boston Celtics.
The Boston Celtics. Yep. Finally, I'm really hopeful. As a Boston fan, I'm really hopeful that all that talk about Celtics wanting to unload Jaylen Brown for
KD.
Durant, which I can understand, like why that would be something that somebody would look at. But I'm hopeful that they're able to kind of get in Brown's ear and just be like, hey, listen, that was just the media talking. We weren't actually looking at that, because him and Tatum are just two guys that are really easy to root for, and they've developed with the Celtics and are just an amazing pair.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. But nipping at their heels is the Milwaukee Bucks, who were only a half game back with Giannis. I mean, looking in the East, like it doesn't look like any like Chicago, Indiana, Orlando. I mean, I think Orlando wouldn't mind making the playoffs this year. They have a nice nucleus too.
Yep. Same thing as OKC, a really good young core.
Yeah, like if you got Franz Wagner and Paolo, like that's almost like the young Celtics, where you have two athletic wings that can score from all over the place, and that's a nice way to build. I want to see what happens.
It definitely gives you a lot of flexibility. Again, looking at that, kind of the blueprint with the Celtics, they don't have a dominant center. They don't have, they have above average guards. It's actually kind of interesting. Like the top 4 guards for the Celtics, when everybody's healthy, are really strong, all 4 of them.
Yeah.
That just, again, having those 2 really solid wing players who can do so much for you really gives you a lot of flexibility as you're building your team. You can go a lot of different ways. I think that's really the biggest thing, between the Bucks and the Celtics. Really hard trying to figure out or predict who's going to come out on top. I definitely see those two teams as the teams that will be right now in, if all stays the same, kind of in the East Championship. But I just think that, again, that flexibility with Brown and Tatum gives them more ways to win. And when you're in a 7-game series, you're going to have to find different ways to win to come out on top in the series. And I think,
oh, without a doubt,
I'd lean towards the Celtics for that reason, because with the Bucks, it goes as Giannis goes. As great as he is, probably the best player in basketball.
Yeah, him or Jokic or Luka, I guess. Everyone got to include Luka in the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But you figure out a way to stymie him for a game or two, and the Bucks don't really have a lot of other options.
Not healthy ones anyway, or that stay healthy. Because Chris Middleton is, he's back. He's starting to play really well, but you wonder what is he going to be there in June? Just because he can't stay healthy. Right. And then the other thing in the East. Was that?
Wasn't Holiday hurt for a while too for them?
He was. He's back too, being Drew Holiday again, which is nice. But looking at the East, you figure Brooklyn, without KD, without Kyrie, even though you have some nice pieces, I feel like they probably drop out of the top 5. And then that weird team is Miami, who just added Kevin Love and somebody else. And you just never count out the Miami Heat, I don't think. I mean, not going all the way, but I feel like they could derail one of those top 4 teams.
Yeah, the Heat are a team that I've learned never to bet against. They just Spoelstra's a great coach, a really solid organization and franchise, and just seems like whoever they have. I mean, they made it to the conference finals, putting out Strus and Vincent.
Yeah,
2 guys that you wouldn't expect.
You can tell the Heat. There's something in the psychological makeup of their players that they like. Going back to the days of like Alonzo Mourning, guys like that, like they just like a certain mentality in their players, and it works. And again, I don't think Miami has any shot of going to the finals. But if I was the Celtics, the Bucks, or the 76ers, and especially the Cavs, I would not want to see them in a playoff series. Any of those teams. Because I think they're capable of...
They're going to play hard. They're going to play the entire 48 minutes. And, especially if you run into them early in the playoffs, you're going to be beat, physically and mentally for the next series. Yeah,
like right now, if I was the Bucks, I wouldn't mind coming in third place and avoiding the 7. I mean, I think the Heat, like I said, I think the Knicks will fall. I think the Heat have got a little bit better at the deadline. I think they might move up. They can end up as the 5 or the 6 pretty easily. But, yeah. And then the one surprise team to some people, I mean, I bet them to win for the season, but Sacramento is still sitting nicely in third place in the West.
Yeah, agreed. Like, shocked with the top of the West right now, the Nuggets, the Grizzlies, and the Kings. But, yeah, the Kings especially. And they're a team that I had been, kind of like duped on for each of the past 4 or 5 years. I thought they were good. I loved the addition of Sabonis last year. Big fan of his. And I thought they were going to make a run the second half of the year last year, and they didn't. But again, it comes down to the coaching piece, I think. That's really the biggest change for them this year. And for them to be third in the West is really surprising and good to them.
Yeah. And then I guess the team I'm still kind of the most surprised about is Golden State still sitting back in 9th. And I know they lost Steph Curry again, but I thought that was a team that could compete for the 1 seed this year. And they're literally 1 game away from being out of the play-in game with the Lakers, which is just nuts, right?
It is. I mean, we talked about it last week, them adding I keep calling him the Glove Jr., even though that's not his nickname.
That's fine.
Gary Payton Jr., we'll see what effect that has for the second half of the season. I think it's going to put them in a spot where they'll be able to move up. But yeah, I mean, with a team with that kind of pedigree and still having the pieces that they have to build around it, it would be surprising if they don't make the playoffs.
Yeah, like Kuminga looks good, but you figure for a team that has won championships and always has a good record, in the last 4 years they had 3 top 10 picks. Wiseman they traded away for 5 second-round picks. Kuminga's contributing and Moody's not, and you sort of figured, when they got that first pick, when they got Wiseman, and then when they got Kuminga and Moody, you were like the rich get richer, but none of those guys are really, you'd figure one of those guys would be, your 6th man are challenging for starting minutes by now, and it's really just not happening for them, which is kind of crazy.
And there's been so much talk about Moody for the past 2 years, and for him to be such a non-contributor, non-factor, it's hard to explain.
It really is. And then obviously the big 2 teams we have to keep an eye on in the West are, well, I guess technically the best 3 teams are the Clippers, the Suns, and the Mavericks are all really interesting moving forward. They're the 4th, 5th, and 6th seeds in that conference, but Suns added KD. The Clippers messed around with their team, and then the Mavericks added Kyrie. So,
yeah, and I think you could even go to 7 and add the Pelicans to that mix because I think that block of 4 teams, the Clippers, the Suns, the Mavs, and the Pelicans, it's all going to boil down to health for the second half of the season. And that's not really like a shocking thing to say because... Well,
with Dallas, I guess Kyrie's mental health would count for health, I suppose, right? Or his mental state, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, but, the Clippers with George and Kawhi, historically, they might have missed more games than they've played over the past, 2 or 3 seasons collectively.
Yeah.
The Suns, last year, I think with the early season injuries, they might have hopefully gotten that out of the way. But you put those 4 guys, their top 4 guys.
It's nasty.
Booker, Durant, Paul, and Ayton. That's a sick starting lineup with whoever. Whoever you put in at the 5th spot.
Yeah.
That lineup competes with anybody. But it's just, again, just don't know if you can rely on them. to stay healthy. And then with the Pelicans, if Zion ever, can string together 25 games.
Yeah, he's been amazing. I think he's played in it's a ridiculously low number, like well under 50% of the games he's been available, and it's
Yeah.
you know
But it wouldn't be surprising if any four of those teams, if they were healthy for the second half of the season, ended up in the conference finals.
oh, without a doubt, yeah. And they're all, like I said, they're very interesting to watch, all of them. So, especially Dallas. Like, I'm very interested in Luka and Kyrie in a playoff game.
Yeah, it's going to be a high scoring game if you see that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see Luka and Kyrie take on the Suns. I mean, the way it would be right now, I guess they wouldn't play it later, but that'd be a fun series right there. KD and Kyrie.
Talk about like backstory, like Kyrie versus Durant.
Yeah.
Series, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I'm kind of seeing it as again, not factoring in for health, just assuming the teams are going to be healthy. I'm seeing a Suns and Celtics final.
Well, just in. Russell Westbrook is signing with the Clippers.
Really?
Yeah.
Breaking news. You don't have like a breaking news sound thing?
I can maybe add in it. Maybe I'll add it in post, or now that I talked about it live, I won't add it in post because it's funny.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, Paul George loves him. Like, they're still boys from their time in Oklahoma City. With Russ, if Russ would do, what the teams want him to do, which is come off the bench, lead the second unit, keep them putting up points when our big guys are off the court. That's fantastic. But Russ on the court with Kyrie and Paul George in crunch time, sadly, Russ is one of my favorites. I don't think I'd be hopeful if I was a Clippers fan if that was happening.
Yeah, and I've heard Russell Westbrook is just an awesome dude.
Yeah.
Like human being wise. But on the court, his game just doesn't match up with a team sport. He was great at OKC when he was the man.
Yeah.
And he was great with the Wizards when he was the man. They had Beal too, but
well, there was talk that was the other team, was he was going to go back to the Wizards, and I was like, well, that makes a lot of sense.
But at least he's always available, as opposed to your other two.
And he plays hard. Yeah, he plays so hard. But again, if he's just coming off the bench as your instant offense off the bench, like second unit guy, and if he bought into that role of I have 15 minutes to be awesome, and didn't have the ego and all that other stuff, it'd be fantastic. But it's hard to imagine him doing that. But like I said, I still think he was a scapegoat in Los Angeles because you got LeBron, the most, who loves to passive aggressively talk about people, and then AD can't stay on the floor. And that team was built on AD staying on the floor. So you can blame Russ all you want, but
Yeah, that's another reason to root for him. When some guy, and I agree with you, he definitely got a lot more criticism than he should. And yes, he's not a great shooter. I get that. But as a coach, you got to, find ways to make it, to leverage his strengths. And he's definitely got strengths that you can leverage.
Yeah.
Can't just keep putting him in a position where, he's set up to fail.
I got to be honest. They just became my second favorite team in the West. I still want Jokic to win his title. I want because I think Jokic is a great player. I want him to have a championship.
Yeah.
But now I'm in the Clippers of a team I want to win his second most. Even if he plays 5 minutes a game, I want Russ to have that ring.
Russ with a ring.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. We'll see if any of that happens.
That's true. Do you want to talk one more? Do you have a rule change you like?
Yeah, I was putting together one for each of the three big sports. I didn't include hockey because I don't know enough about hockey to even come up with a decent rule change. But NBA wise, this is just a minor one, but it drives me insane. Why is it that when I call a timeout in the backcourt, I get to advance the ball up to the offensive end? What is it? How is that fair? I think you should, if you call a timeout, if anything, you should get the ball. You should have to inbound the ball under your basket.
Oh, okay. I don't hate that. Yeah.
So I don't know why it drives me crazy, but it does, and it always has. And I don't know what the point or purpose or how that's even right.
No. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Anything from NBA standpoint that you can think of that needs to be changed?
I mean, I don't know how you implement the rule, but I mean, and it's been like talked to death, and we've talked about it on here too. But some of the rest management stuff, like the NBA needs to find a way, whether they were to make sure their best product is on the floor every night in meaningful games, because they show all the games that people miss, and given the economy we're in, like the amount it would cost to you buy your tickets in advance and you show up and you're not seeing LeBron, you're not seeing Kyrie, you're not seeing the people you came to see who maybe come to your town once every 2 years. So I know, like I said, it's overly discussed, but figure out some way, whether it's extending the schedule out or something, so that your guys are playing and not sitting.
Yeah, that gets me into my big apocalyptic rule change for the NBA, which is relegation, which I still think is something that they could figure out. I know that it's been talked about and mentioned, and not a consideration because of the potential negative impact to the value of each franchise, but that would fix it.
It would be fun, yes.
Then with the NFL, again, another kind of like small random one that that sticks in my head. Safeties. How is it that a safety? There was only 10 of them in the entire last season.
Yeah.
Very rare, very hard to do, right? You get 2 points.
I know, not even a field goal.
Right, a field goal gets you more points than a safety. The safety should be worth it 5 points.
Agreed, 100%. Yeah. I know they're like, well, it's 2 points and you get possession of the ball, but I still feel like you're right. It's more points than that. It's so rare. It's such a hard thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because the other thing, too, with the safety, when you get the ball back, it can be your place kicker or your punter.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm getting the ball back probably somewhere, my 30-yard line, which is not guaranteed to get a point. Whereas if I had just tackled the guy on the 1-yard line, forced them to punt from the 1, I'm probably getting the ball at like midfield.
Yeah. I
need one first down to get a field goal. If I get the field goal, I get more points than I would have got for the safety. So it's one of those things, it's just one of those kind of rare, corny rule change things that I would.
Oh yeah.
I would do. But I think that's something that needs to happen.
Mine obviously is Sky Judge. I've ranted about it a million times, but you think about all the non-roughing calls. Like, call it what you see it on the field. The guy upstairs has the perfect view, sees that he landed like the best the defensive tackle can land, and you pick up the flag. You'd be like, on review, boom, and just keep moving. But just, we have technology, we should embrace it more. That's all. That'd be my only rule change.
Yeah. To your point, like, even if you had, like, 6, 8, 10, like, even if you had a certain number, like, with review, right? Like, touchdowns and turnovers are subject to automatic review. To your point, like, even if you just kept it to, like, 6 or 8 or 10 things that happen in an NFL game that go to that Sky Judge immediately.
Yeah.
I could see that. I could see that working.
And again, like, did he catch it? Did he not catch it? The Sky Judge is going to know 5 minutes for everybody else because we on TV have already seen all the angles too. And then, like I said, those roughing calls where, call it the way you saw it on the field. But if he looks up and he's like, oh, that wasn't anything wrong, like I saw the one defensive tackle who famously was falling down and looked like he was doing like a belly flop in a pool. Like his arms were off. He was trying to lean to the side, but he's 320 pounds and he still landed on the quarterback and they called roughing. And he was just like what is he supposed to do?
Yeah. There's definitely some of the things that.
Yeah, and I don't want them to. I don't want to.
And the job of the referees, like, I mean, the speed of the games is so fast now that you can understand why mistakes are going to be made. But
of course,
having some backup to try to make sure that what ends up typically being a super important call is the right call, Like, that's definitely important.
Yeah. And real quick, while on the NFL, Bradbury held him. He admitted he held him. That's the way the game is called. Shut up. A penalty is a penalty no matter when it happens. Just because you didn't like the way it ended, it doesn't. I mean, it's nothing to do with it. It's a real penalty. It keeps bothering me all week. It's the lack of morals in this country.
Yeah, I agree with you. Penalty's a penalty. That's the name of the game. Just don't commit the penalty, and then there's not going to be the flag throw.
Yeah.
And then MLB. This is probably the most outlandish one.
Okay.
And I get that. It would be for the regular season only, but it would be to try to like jazz up the regular season, make it a little bit more interesting for the viewers and for the players, quite honestly. So there's a wheel that you spin before each inning, or maybe it doesn't have to be a wheel. It could be some kind of like digital thing. I don't know what it is. But it's the wheel. I'm going with that concept now. It has the numbers 0, 1, 2, or 3 on it. You spin the wheel. Whatever number it lands on, that's the number of base runners that start that you start the inning with for each team.
Oh, wow. Yeah. They got to do something.
Kind of expanding on the whole playoff thing, or the extra innings thing that they've now done, where they had a runner at second base.
Yeah.
Now you could start an inning with the bases loaded. And it's not going to slow down the game. If anything, it's actually going to speed up the game because you'll be able to have more double plays. But you just, each inning, you don't know what to expect.
Okay. I like it. I would just say that I guess I didn't come up with a baseball one because as I thought about it, I was like, again, some of the greatest baseball video games in the world are free. I love video games. I don't play baseball video games because the video game is boring. There's nothing they can do that will ever make me probably go back and watch baseball. I don't even know, because I don't know how many rules you could change before you no longer have the sport that's something, like that sort of thing. Like they're talking about pitch counts and everything else. I'm like, it's still it's a slow game, and it's always going to be. I don't know, like if it'll ever be a non-slow game.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was coming from in terms of like how do you jazz it up and not change the rules, the fundamental rules of the game, right? So
yeah.
Trying to have each inning have some kind of like difference, or as opposed to just like another 1, 2, 3 inning for Scherzer, like okay, that's kind of gets old quick.
Because I sort of thought about like because people are like, well, get rid of some of the analytics, like make the shift illegal and things along those lines, and I'm like, I guess I'm like, and then my dad's brought it up a few different times where it's like, it's the average baseball game, let's say, is 3 hours. But if we do these 3 cost-cutting moves, the average baseball time will be 2 hours and 48 minutes. And I'm like, that's not selling it for me. And again, I don't even know, like, I don't know what the future of baseball is, long term. Obviously now they're fine. They're still making billions of dollars, live TV, all that stuff. But I just think generationally that sport erodes more and more and more. And I don't know what happens when baseball becomes hockey, where it's just a very niche thing that people like. I wonder where that'll go.
I mean, certainly the player salaries go down.
Yeah.
And so you have less interest from really talented athletes. That's an interesting.
I mean, it's nothing soon, obviously, but I was just thinking, I was like, I know less and less people that are interested in baseball the younger the people I talk to are. Which is, pour one out for baseball. Well, before we ramble on anymore, you went on vacation. Anything you want to talk about from vacation for the listeners? Anything especially exciting?
Yeah, I mean, if you ever get a chance to go to Key West, I would highly recommend it. And there's this one restaurant that's just like top. I mean, there's a lot of good food down there, but there's this one restaurant, Croissants du France is the name of it, and it is just an amazing place. Like many of the other places, not like this big sprawling, you know, restaurant, just kind of like stuck in along the main way there, Duval Ave, I think it is. But it is the foods there is amazing there. It's, you know, authentic French food that was just so impressive. So if you're going down to Key West, well, if you're not going down to Key West, you should make plans to go down there because it's just an awesome spot. But check that restaurant out if you get a chance.
Okay. And then I guess my only entertainment moment, real quick, to end the show is my anti-entertainment moment. We subscribed to AMC Plus. We added it to our Amazon.
Yep.
And we started watching Anne Rice's The Witches of Mayfair, which, for the record, I don't even think it's that good of a show, but whatever. But it's an AMC show, but on AMC Plus, you get the first episode for free. You also get the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th episodes for free. But for some reason, you have to buy the second episode. Which,
what is up with that?
It's an AMC show on AMC Plus, which I'm already paying for as a subscription, but I can only watch and again, it was like, at first I was like, wait, what? I was like, there's got to be a mistake. I was like, why would I have to buy one episode out of the season and the second episode? So, I guess it's a negative towards AMC Plus. I don't know what they're doing. It seems stupid.
Yeah, that's just downright rude.
Yeah.
You know, you're paying that money anyways? No. Yeah, I don't like that concept at all.
No. And again, it's more the principle because the show wasn't all that entertaining. But and then I looked at their other shows because the sister show or the brother show, I guess whatever it would be, is Interview with the Vampire, the TV show. That one, all episodes are free. Or included. I shouldn't say free. They're all included in your subscription. So I don't understand what they're doing with that. But I don't like that concept, and I thought I would yell at them for it. And the only public forum I have. I might tweet at them later.
From the last time I was on, I had brought up the fact that I was never going to watch The Menu, but you were excited about that. Did you ever watch that movie?
I did.
What did you think?
I did not dislike it. I didn't love it. I know it was a dark comedy. I thought it would be a little more funny, and you know, it was just sort of there.
Yeah, my wife watched it in the seat next to me on the plane with her headphones, so I didn't get any audio. But, I mean, it was right there, so I had to kind of watch it. But I'm still stuck on the whole notion that that was made into a movie. I don't get it.
I will say, you know, from a food porn perspective, the cheeseburger he makes towards the end of the film is just incredible looking.
I did see that scene, and the way they filmed it made the burger look very, very tempting.
Yeah.
So I will agree with you on that.
I went and got a burger the very next day after watching that movie. It's like when I used to watch Ninja Turtle, you know, the Ninja Turtles come on, I want a pizza. That movie, I was like, I know this is what it is, but I'm like, I really want that burger from last night. So, yeah. We'll eventually, I guess, be back and talking more NBA because everything else is really slowing down, unfortunately.
Yep, it's the brutal 6 months.
It is, but the NFL draft is coming up, and I'm very excited. So, I'll bore people with details of that as the show goes on each week.
Nice.
So until next week, signing off.